So today we're talking listing marketing,
Hmm.
specifically basically leveraging it to get more deals is the main goal there.
Do you want to go like in the approach of this? Do you want to just go up the ladder? And we could just start with like the fact that, there's some agents that literally just put it on MLS as far as like putting the property out.
Oh, like especially before this downturn in the market, the amount of times we would hear from people who'd be like, part of the marketing, be like, "Oh, I don't need to advertise the listings. I just have to put them on MLS and they'll sell. Like, I don't have to do anything." And now for the like, especially in Toronto area agents, it's like the first time, arguably in like 10 years, they've had to actually market a listing,
Hmm.
which to me is always the wrong approach. Regardless of not getting the most for your clients, it's you're missing out on so much opportunity to get other clients. And
Yeah, like I think that most professional agents see listings as marketing events,
yeah, like
right?
when I talk about like the wheelhouse marketing framework that we have, like one of the points I always make presenting it is if you did the wheelhouse marketing framework and you had a consistent flow of listings, you could accomplish the entire thing with just that. The
Hmm.
ways, different ways you leverage your listings can be used entirely to grow your business, which is why I always talk about too. Like if you're, it's even at your size and up, people can't come out of the gate copying what you do. They have to go back to what you did back then.
Yeah, being a parent, I imagine if somebody just gave me a 9-year-old,
Yeah.
I'd be screwed. I'm so glad they kind of showed up as like larvae in the beginning and
Yeah.
they were so much easier to manage. Um, and that's the same idea. Even when people are taking a look at our approach to selling listings, like if you didn't have the systems behind it, the what you can see from the outside won't actually function.
Yeah.
So, kind of starting at the baseline, when you talk to somebody about taking a listing, you're obligating yourself to do what it says in the agreement, and that would be, market their property. And over time, because it got systemized, people just saw the MLS as being the marketing.
Yeah.
Here in Canada, it's realtor.ca, and that's driven that way. It's interesting to see how that systemized, but how that became like the level of white noise.
Now, how, and this is what I'm curious about because this is always, and the whole 87% of stats are made up on the spot.
Mm,
Um, is what percent of the marketing would you say is the price?
man, like I I'm gonna just approach the question as you put it. So
Yeah.
I would say that pricing, as far as selling the listing, so if you're talking about marketing of a listing, there can be multiple goals here. But when you're talking about selling the listing, I would arguably say that you could effectively use price as 100% of marketing. If that was like you could dial it all the way to 100. I don't know that you could dial it down past 60, meaning that if you're not priced correctly, then I don't know that much other marketing would work.
Yeah. Like it's funny because like that's where now I noticed Joyce has her hand up. I don't know if that's accidental or on purpose, but Joyce, if it's on purpose, would you like to come on and ask a question or raise a point? We're happy to bring you on camera. If you let us know in the chat, you can put a question in the chat, or you can say if you want to come on camera. We're happy to bring people on when they're here.
Get in the mix, Joyce.
Yeah, just let us know and I'll send you an invite to come on camera for a minute while we're
Hmm.
chatting about it. But if not, don't worry about it. Could have just been an accidental hand raise. But that goes for anyone else here. If you want to put up your hand to come on, feel free. We'll certainly invite you in. Now,
Yeah, so getting back to that, this like type of MLS marketing became so standard,
yeah,
right? And on that, like when you're competing on that platform, price is something that we pay close attention to. So maybe let's start there, is to say the minimum to having a property kind of for sale, unless it's an exclusive listing, is to have it on MLS or realtor.ca.
yeah,
And if that's the case, then Uh, Pricing is like the primary search criteria on there. And also the thing I'm sensitive to is that the search criteria is in a drop-down menu.
So not enough people talk about that. I see it discussed once in a while, but
So this is like the first thing I was ever a public speaker on. This is
yeah,
like so close to my heart right now.
I know it's one of
Is
those. It's so simple, and like I don't talk about it much either because that's not we don't get into that much of that with our clients. But the amount of people who don't look at that always surprises me
Yeah.
because you do have to
So
be very strategic about that.
yeah, there's a few ways to kind of look at this. So on one hand, when I look at the pricing in the drop-down menu, it reminds me of like weight classes for combat sports.
Yeah,
And if you were competing in the wrong weight class, you were probably not going to do well. And then the other thing it makes me think about is the bridge. A lot of the times in my market, the search criteria is in $25,000 increments.
yep,
In higher price ranges, it's in $50,000 increments. But there's one thing that's kind of funny in the way that humans seem to approach this, which is a big part of marketing,
no,
is that even when I was doing mortgages before real estate, often the pre-approvals are in $25,000 increments, and that's mathematically impossible. Your income isn't even, your debt
no,
payments aren't even, the ratio percentages that they would use to calculate your capacity aren't even. It would never come out to a round number, let alone a $25,000 increment, right?
yep,
Yet, almost all the pre-approvals I issued and that I've received since becoming a realtor are in $25,000 increments.
yeah.
And so it led me down this tunnel of how did this come up? How did this happen? And what I was able to determine is this is how humans see large numbers. Like once we get into a certain range, we're going to talk about it in certain denominations. That's just how we work.
So I never thought before about the pre-approval side of that as well. Like I've definitely seen the pricing it for realtor.ca based on the increments they have searchable, but I have never thought about the pre-approval side of that, to be honest.
So I
Interesting.
honestly believe it's a cognitive bias and that we should lead with that. It's like one
Yep.
of those things that's like automatic behavior that you can target in marketing.
Yep.
So then when you think about those search pools, you also see things like at 500. So when I have buyers looking at 500,000, they are going to all look a little over 500,000. But a lot of people are not going to be comfortable at that price range in asking their agent to show them something maybe $10,000 more than 500. So
Yeah.
they changed the search criteria to look to like 500 to 525 or 500 to 550, but they're not going to show all the way up to that. They're
Yeah.
really focused on that bright spot right around the that $25,000 increment. It's like a traffic spot that we've
Yeah.
tracked for a long time in our marketing.
Yeah.
So the problem is that when you price things at 499.9, you only get half of that play. And if you price them at $500,000 even, you will lose nobody and you gain everybody searching in that other platform.
Yeah. Like the 999
99
thing I
pricing
get
is
for
for
Walmart.
Walmart.
Yeah.
It's for like it is for retail. I can even tell you the history of it, but it is not effective in real estate.
Yeah. That's a big one I always saw it as like you even for some of this pricing we do at Just Sell Homes, right? Like there's also like from a psychological like when you're doing higher end stuff, it's like don't put the 99 because that can have that impression of it's
Makes it
not
feel
as well.
cheap.
Yeah, so like our for example, our monthly package, there was a time we charged 999 999 a month and now but we switched it just straight 1,000.
Yeah.
And
And
like
that's how we think about it and how we feel about it anyway.
yeah.
So the other side to the 99 effect is it has like it rings the salesperson alarm. Like we're trying to sell you something instead of like it looks like a
Yeah.
tactic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, I mean I don't know if it comes out how much it would come up at Edmonton. The one that I've seen in some communities is where they put like it all eights. because that's
Oh
good
yeah.
luck for the Chinese communities.
Yep. Eights and sevens next to eights and avoid
Yeah,
fours.
yeah, the fours, because like I know in a lot of our areas, and I don't know if it's come up in Edmonton as much, where it's like they're trying to like petition to change houses with the number four on it at the end to like just stop
Yep.
having those in neighborhoods because it hurts the
How
price
many
so much.
buildings? How many
Yeah,
buildings don't
they
have a
skipped
13th
13,
floor?
14 now.
Right? They just lied.
Yeah.
It was still the 13th floor.
Yeah. But no, like, and so in like, for example, Markham, I was in a building and like they didn't have fourth floor, 13th or 14th, which obviously can get very confusing for firefighters.
See,
Knowing,
that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Just like have
yeah,
the house numbers on the front of the house.
yeah,
Like for the love, put the house numbers on the front of the house. They have to guess. They're driving at night.
yeah,
Ambulances and firefighters are who are affected by this.
yes. But I guess that's a whole other discussion for pricing.
we're we're gonna eventually turn into the two old guys from the top of the
Yeah, old
Muppets.
man yells at cloud.
Just yeah, follow the
Yeah,
rules and stay
yeah,
off my lawn.
yeah. Part of the fun.
Okay, so we're talking
Yeah,
about pricing the bridge, which is
yeah,
how to get more attention with pricing, right? Pricing is a marketing tool where we saw this tactic a whole bunch in major markets during COVID. Here in Edmonton, we're using it right now, which is to essentially, we know there's so much traffic that we can price under and push into multiple offer scenarios.
yep,
But there's like 263 fields that I think are required for the standard, like what we would call a Paragon or a Matrix, whatever fusion, whatever
yeah,
system that you're running to make an MLS listing. In a lot of these systems, you're only allowed like 1,050 characters for the description. There's
yep,
some real limitations, and a lot of the things are drop down menus. So when I look at like an MLS listing, I look at all of the ways that you can win there. Like
yeah.
this is supposed to be like NASCAR. This is supposed to be stock. All the things are even, right? This isn't even. Like, what do you think about this? Like, there's a lot of people that search on Google and use landmarks, like using landmarks and geographical references in your listing description.
I I mean, it depends on the landmark to me. Like,
What if it was a school?
I think you to a degree, I would say it's subjective on who you think the likely buyer is.
Fair.
Because if you're selling to like an area where it's mostly locals, you don't necessarily like you can go like, hey, it's in this school catchment area. Because that is a big
Hmm.
thing. Now, if you're like, so I'm in Newmarket, 45 minutes north of Toronto, or an hour and a half, depending on traffic. Um, the people coming from Toronto to move up here, if you said this specific school or this specific school to 99% of them, that's meaningless. So it might be like walking distance to a French immersion school. So you're more going broader, or
Hmm.
walking distance to a, this school or this type, like a Catholic school or something. Like you go a little bit broader with it. Whereas like if you're trying to sell to a local, I might want to go like, hey, we're walking distance or we're in the catchment area. Because like, for example, they're changing the catchment areas for high schools here starting like next year. Some people are really upset about where their kids are going to end up going. So for them looking, they'd want to know which school it is, but the downtown Toronto people wouldn't really care if they're
So
coming
this is
off.
like kind of the leading edge of marketing when you know like a news event is going to trigger buyer behavior to head that off.
Yeah.
So in new market, putting schools in your listing description
Yeah.
is probably going to be good game because people are going to be searching for that on
Yeah.
Google and it'll be an SEO
You're
catch.
downtown Toronto, I wouldn't worry too much about. Like you're not as much going. But again, depends on the
Hmm.
neighborhood. And like a condo in Liberty Village, you just ignore schools at all. Like that's
Right.
all
But
young
then
people or investors.
the other thing are like capital landmarks, like unique landmarks. Like I'm near the University of Alberta. Um, that would
Again,
be.
depends on the likely buyer, right? Like so like look at University of Alberta. If I wanted, I'm either it means I'm like the parent looking to buy a place for my kid, or I'm an investor who wants a student rental. If those are the likely buyers, yeah, you want to talk about the likelihood and why it's a good investment. If it just happens to be near there, but the likely buyer is not a University of Alberta person, different story. And that's knowing the
Yeah,
buyers
and
for that building.
I would agree with that for like the primary bounce. So
Yeah.
yes, if you have condos there, they're going to be for people buying it for their kids or for investors looking to rent them out.
Yeah.
But then there's also the secondary effect where there's a whole bunch of professionals that work at the university. It's also got the university
Yeah.
hospital. And so you end up with a lot of the like basically like neighborhoods near there being occupied by this group, and they're willing to pay more than anybody else would to be in this area. So they end up to kind of dominate, right?
Yeah.
So people
Now,
tied to the university is kind of very key.
there's an interesting one though of like, so for example, let's take University of Alberta just as the example here. How many of the people looking there are using that as the keyword searching versus they're just going pinpointed in that exact area on the map search,
Oh, totally could be the same.
right?
Yep.
Like I think there's probably like are like that's where I'm not sure based on how people search because most people when they go on it's select price range, bedrooms, bathrooms, and then maybe house type search.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is winning on and winning off of realtor.ca.
Yeah, and I
So
like
when you're saying winning on realtor.ca, you're using mapping functions, right?
yeah.
And what I'm asking, because you know a ton about this, is there a way to win off of realtor.ca for people that are looking at Google?
Yes, but I wouldn't be using the listing description on MLS as the tool to do that.
Tell me more.
So, like, this is what I did when I sold. And what I would do if I were you, and this is partially just knowing what I know about Google, is let's say, for example, like if every page has the same content, it's not that
Mhm.
they penalize you for duplicate content, it's that they're just going to rank one person at the top, right? So, like, you can have duplicate content, you're not going to be penalized. It's just the other person who has it's going to win. Now, the MLS feed, what that does is everybody has the same thing on the page. There might be they display this a little bit differently. They've optimized, but it's the same thing across every page. Now, if you get a listing today and you go on your website, write a blog post that's 1,000 words long that goes into an insane amount of detail about that listing, what do you think is going to rank first? A in-depth thing about that listing or what every other site has being exactly the same?
I
So
see
for
what you
your
mean.
own listings, I would do an in-depth blog post. And I might not call it a blog post because blog post as a term blog is kind of becoming this, oh, that's a dated thing. I would call it like a listing detail page or a property page or something. Like I might give it a different spin from a marketing perspective, but in effect, it's a blog post.
Hmm.
And I would write anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 words on that listing, answer every question they could possibly have, and I would go as in depth as possible to make sure every piece of information they needs on that page to make an informed decision. That will rank at the top for that listing. And then when it sells, you can update that page into a case study. And now you're going to rank and even future like on that street, you'll start ranking if people start searching on that street in the future. And it becomes now a future valuable resource that you can have, whereas the MLS one goes away. But if you're just the MLS, like, yeah, like you can optimize, but like, let's take Alberta, you're competing against like Justin Haver, Remax.ca, where like they're going to beat you on how they optimize their site. Like you're not competing with that level of spend.
See, a lot of people think that this is like mysterious, but I actually know. So, as somebody who has looked into purchasing websites like that, like what you're talking about is kind of like if you had something that was like considered to be competitive
Yeah.
in the space where people are selling you websites that come with CRMs attached,
Yeah.
right? They already come with thousands of people inside of it and they're continuing to engage and drive that. I think that the entry point would probably be about 400 grand.
Yeah. Like,
And what they're talking about is a minimum of 75 to $100,000 in SEO spend per year.
yeah. Yeah. And again, depends on the market. So, like, when you go somewhere like a Calgary where you have a big spender like Haver, it's probably
Mhm.
higher.
Well, that's because this is probably about what he would be spending.
Like if you like this was years ago and it might even be more now. Like it was something like there's one of those things that estimates how much like traffic value if they were to get the same amount of traffic in ad spend. And I believe
Mm.
his site was showing that it was about 300,000 a month worth of value his organic rankings gave him if they had been purchased through ads.
Yep.
Like it's like he's not competing against other agents for SEO anymore. He's
Yeah,
directly
but
competing
also
with realtor.ca, which is a different
he's
game.
running the he's running the McDonald's strategy.
Yeah.
Like McDonald's isn't a burger company; they're a real estate company that sells like pays for it with burgers.
Yeah.
And what Justin is doing is actually developing internet web space, like internet assets.
Yeah.
He owns like city websites, and he's using real estate as a way to monetize that on top
Yeah.
of other things. But
Yeah.
really
Which
impressive,
I think we've
but
talked about
so
it. I don't remember
unconventional.
if it was on a call or not, like on a recorded one, but we've talked about it where I was saying like if I would had the budget and went back into real estate sales, I would basically start a local newspaper that had a search function on it.
Yeah, amazing.
Like that's how I would rank because
And
you
that's
get the
something
first
that like
content.
we're going to talk about probably as we go forward here because I want to do some case studies with you
Yeah.
and I'm really on like we're actually like deep into the research that we're going to do to try to dominate the schools in our area.
Yep.
So school search is where we're going.
So on that, which we can talk about maybe more in depth on another one, like I would go as far as like interviewing the principals, interviewing teachers, like
I'm building the back end by
yeah,
making a big list and we have our photographer from Gravidia that's out shooting everything.
yep,
So we're just developing the assets right now and then we'll be
nice,
ready for that.
yeah,
So I'm
because that,
excited to kind of go through that with you because, like, imagine if we can use schools to the same effect that Dean Jackson used Lakeside.
yep,
That's my play.
yeah. No, it's literally what I did when I was blogging. It killed it. Like I would
Let's
be
go.
1 and 2 with the school's own website.
Hmm.
It works out well.
So so we talked a little bit about the effects that you do on MLS and how they can either like be somewhat beneficial to search, but what Andrew's saying as the marketing expert is don't try to rank up on search using your MLS listing because it's too rapid and the IDX puts it everywhere, which
Yeah.
basically means you're competing with like I don't know like 1,000 mirror images of yourself for like for
Yeah. And
attention.
the problem with, say, trying to optimize it to show up higher on Google through realtor.ca, like let's use realtor.ca as the main one here because it is. Um, I want that to rank. But if they come to that site and it's my efforts that got them there, that doesn't mean they're not going to look at a similar listing and reach out and become a lead for another realtor. If
Oh
I'm going to
yeah.
put the work in, I want to drive them to my property. And when I say my property, I mean like my website because I own it. So even if they happen to look at other similar listings, there's leads are that's still going to come to me. Like
This is a
my
really good point because you, by driving it from the far end, it could be that you actually do a good job in attracting to the property, but somebody has a better catch site than you, and essentially like is usurping your effort.
Yeah. Like your MLS description, which is a short window, I would look at it as this is my like in a video term, this is my teaser trailer to get them to take the next step that I want them to do.
And the next step
I'm
at listing description is you're closing the showing
not
because the way
always,
that
but
people look at
yes.
listings
It
is
might
it's
not be to close the showing though. It might be to generate a phone call for some people. Like
that's a good
a
point.
like it could be if your next step is in an ideal world, they would fill out the thing and fill out the form and reach out to me through a form. It could be I want them to go to my website to check out the more in-depth post that's on my website. It could be directly to book a showing. It could be to drive them to an open house. But
Okay, so
you have to
now
know that goal.
the way that you can do this on most MLS boards would be to say visit the realtor's website as part of your public remarks. And then what you would be doing is driving traffic from your listing that's mirrored everywhere. So no matter who is which search site, if they want this additional information, now they come to you. You made a funnel.
Yeah. And you do have to be careful because I know different boards have different rules of how you're allowed to do that. So you have to make sure it's within the rules of like your
On
local
mine, it's
board.
generic language that says visit the realtor website for additional information.
Yeah.
And then on that they can like even on realtor.ca they can click and then they can kind of come through and that would be the grab there.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to get them off of realtor.ca into your direction. And that's a
Actually,
pretty low effort run.
here's an interesting one that it was a brief business like 8 years ago I had looked at doing, and then realtor.ca made one switch and screwed it up. Um, and so we were working with teams who had a lot of listings on realtor.ca, and that whole visit realtor website was a thing. But when they clicked visit real, it went to the home page, and then it'd be like four
Yes.
clicks to find the page about that listing. And so we had built a tool that would, when they clicked on it, would see the URL that was referring it,
Hmm.
pull the address, and auto redirect them to the in-depth page about that listing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they changed a security setting that hid the incoming URL. Like
Oh
we had
yeah, man.
started building it, we're just about ready to. It was gonna be like $10 a month for people to use, like just a little value add tool. And then literally that one change and all the development went away.
Yep, I've been there. I had a
Yeah,
startup that got crushed by a Google change. We
yeah,
had Trend Gorilla, and we tracked trends off the back of Google Trends, but made a cool interface. Our
yeah,
website was getting like 80,000 hits a week.
not
It
bad.
was like fueled by its own exhaust. It was ridiculous. And this
Yeah,
was right out of the gate, but they made one change at how the Google bots value data and
yeah,
value information, and all the mirror sites got killed, and we were one of them.
yeah. It's part of the fun, right? Like you
So taking
always
a look at
want
realtor.ca, I really think that like see how we're talking about different ways to close. So you
to.
can try to close selling the house. So that the big thing is to get off the list. We'll talk about that in a second. Pricing the bridge is another thing to do to get more attention. But then driving people to something you own is immediately where Andrew's head goes as a marketer.
Yeah,
Like, who cares if you've attracted their attention if you can't capture it?
yeah. Like it's that first step of okay, yeah. Like it's a great way to get people to discover that you're out there.
Hmm.
But you need to get them, like when we look at the wheelhouse framework, the first one's discover, the second one's conversation. So they find out you exist. How do you
Totally.
get them to start talking to you? And this is one, like the more I work with, like the higher up you go in kind of team size that are scaling, every single one ends up with one goal: is I want to funnel every conversation to one source. Some people that's DM, some that's a phone call, some that's an email, some it's a page on a website. But their goal is to drive everybody to one, maybe two sources, and then they just relentlessly focus on improving that.
Yep.
So,
And with
what is
me,
that source
it's
for you, basically?
yeah, and that's the same as me. Like for we've got a system we work with called Ylopo, and I like the conversion setup it has.
Yeah,
So you can log in with Google, you can log in with Facebook. It's sticky. It asks questions over periods of time of searching on at real estate instead of like right out of the gate. So my job is to feed that machine. If
yeah.
I feed that machine, then everything goes from there. But if I'm trying to bring things into a bunch of different places, how do you monitor it all? Right?
It's that, and that's where you end up getting a lot of people who like they feel like they're running around with their chick like a chicken with their head cut off, is they've made it too complicated.
So
And
as an individual agent, I would normally be trying to drive to the phone or email because I would want part of my ability to be my quick reaction. If I
and
got if I was if I got to the point where I had more money than time, I would change. But in the beginning, when I have more time than money, I need them to feel like they can talk to me right now because against top agents in my marketplace, I have
yeah,
like this amazing cheat card and
yeah,
it's availability as an ability.
yeah. Oh,
Like being
it's
that they can get in touch with you like right
yeah,
now. Like look at me. I'm here talking with Andrew. My phone rings. It's going to wait until after this.
yeah. Mine ring while
But that's
we're
not the
on
same for
here already.
everybody.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of value to that. But like, and as you grow, you can just hire someone whose their job is to sit there and answer phone calls. Like, and I've even seen it where like maybe that entry point is actually like Instagram DMs or something like that, right? Like there's
Hmm.
not a right or wrong here. It's like what's right for your flow. Like
Hmm.
I've seen people who kill it by driving everyone into a one DM. But I've also seen people who like, I remember the first client I ever got for Just Sell Homes. Now we're going back a while. They got me access to their Facebook page. The first thing I went and did was I went and looked at their inbox, and there was 8 unanswered come list me's.
Ooh,
And
that burns.
I was still able to get them 3 of them, which is an immediate return. Like I got paid for like 3 or 4 years of our services like that. But literally of the 8, 3 turned into listings. One had already ended up reaching out to them through, but they lost 4 listings because they just didn't pay attention. Like, to be honest, they didn't actually know how to log into their Facebook anymore. They had stopped a long time before. But like it was
Yep.
that simple of a thing. It's because they didn't have that set up strategically to drive everyone to one thing.
Yeah, but that's something that's also a growth issue. So many
Yeah.
people will plant seeds in many places and never go back to harvest. So
Yeah.
they obviously did the work of setting up a Facebook and eventually they just got like, oh, this isn't really working.
Yeah.
And then they left and then the fruit showed up.
But
and
this is
nobody was there.
one thing that we do talk to people a lot is because what happened, especially back then, and you were around the industry then, so you've seen it too, is like every time a new social media platform was popping up, everybody created accounts on them. And you
Yeah.
would see like even up till today, I will still see the odd realtor's website that still has like a Google Plus sign on it because they had all these things, and it's just like we never updated the website that we shouldn't have those profiles there. And one of the things I always recommend is like if you're not active, either delete the account or lock it or pin a post to the top saying we're not active here, come find us over here.
Hmm.
Because if you're not active and monitoring it, you could potentially cost yourself business. And if you don't have that post and it looks like you haven't posted in 3 years, like this happens a lot on Twitter. If the person coming to you is a big Twitter user and they go to your account, it looks like you haven't posted in 3 years, they're gonna be like, are they even still in the business? But
Totally.
if you have a pinned post saying, hey, we decided to allocate our marketing efforts over here. We're not active on Twitter anymore. Come over here to find out what we're doing. That
Yep.
at least now you're
I would
doing.
agree.
Yeah. Or I just shut the account down altogether.
So you were talking about ways to get off of realtor.ca. Now the other thing is like how do you make your listing work on realtor.ca to increase likelihood that people will come see it and make offers, right? Now we were talking about pricing before and pricing the
Yeah.
bridge. One of the other things that I find is the order of operation that people tend to process things and standing out. So when most people are on realtor.ca, they're looking at a list of houses.
Yeah.
So that's where you need to win from. So on YouTube, this is the thumbnail that everybody talks about. This is how people choose.
Yeah.
And winning there is so important. So when they take a look at you and 5 other listings, what do they see? Well, if you take a look at it by percentage, you would probably say maybe 30% of the little picture of the little thing they see is the picture of the house.
Yep.
But I'm
Yeah.
going
It's
to argue that psychologically, 80% of what they see in that little box in the list is the picture
yeah.
of the house.
I would say yeah,
Now,
that
this is
first photo.
something. This is one thing where I started to get a measurable change. I noticed that pretty much 10 out of 10 listings in my market led with the exterior front photo of the house.
Yep.
There's an MLS rule here that says that there must be an exterior front picture of the house, but nobody says it needs to be your primary picture or your first image.
Yep.
And so by changing that to what we considered a zoom in image, so a picture of the kitchen where you're like, oh, what's that? And then you zoom in, or actually anything aside from the front of the house, we were able to all of a sudden get a measurable change.
Now, is that a measurable change in click-throughs or
Clicks,
opt-ins?
click throughs.
Now, I would be curious how it would impact the number of like leads or if it stayed the same.
I would imagine that it is a funnel, meaning that we probably affected more click throughs than we did overall, right?
Yeah. But like, because
But the
sometimes
whole
people are just
idea,
coming quickly to see that front of the image and they're just as much back out again. So that's where I'd be curious, like, are you actually going to hurt the conversion rate overall instead of maybe a strategy where you make a much nicer exterior shot, right? Like, what if you greatly improved the quality of that exterior shot
we've
versus
definitely
interior?
tested it.
Yeah.
Doing things like evening effects. We've even
Yeah.
changed the skies to pink skies.
Yep.
We've done quite a few things in order to try to A/B test that,
Can
and
you
we
put
find
graphics
that
on it at all or no?
no, we can't.
So yeah, I was thinking like if you could you could put like the price right on the image.
That is an interesting approach. I don't believe that you can have any text in these images, like any like added in text.
Yeah.
But I often wonder about that. One of the things that I was kind of wondering about was some level of like brand awareness. So at one point I was wondering if like what happens if I tinted all of my primary pictures like an odd color like orange or whatever I choose, right?
Yeah.
Like one, would that violate a rule? But two, would everybody notice like what listings are ours?
Could you put a mascot in the front of the house?
I used to do that in my videos. I used to do the House Hulk.
Yeah.
So I bought an Incredible Hulk. He was like pretty tall. I think he was like 18 inches or something like that.
Yeah.
And I would put him somewhere in the listing, and then when we did the video tour, you would see him, and then I would have contests in the comments
Yeah.
for finding the house Hulk.
So one agent I know, and now they're in the US, not here, what they did is, and they were allowed to do it on the MLS, they have run a certified pre-owned home program, and that's on the first image is a seal for this is a certified
Ooh.
pre-owned home. Because now
Mm-hmm.
like half the people they either know what it is because he markets it a lot there and it makes them want to click it, or they're like, oh, what is that? And they click to learn more.
Hmm.
And that is like so like for example, that's not branded, it's just a certified pre-owned home seal. And that would stand out. So like had you for example, like basically what we're getting at here is that first image really matters. How can you make it stand out versus other people?
You're making me take notes, Andrew.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh yeah, I
You got
love
to
it.
report back though.
Well, that's the idea is like
Yeah.
as I build these things,
Yeah.
and I take a while to implement because I try to choose selectively now because
Yeah.
there's so many good ideas, but how many can you action?
And so, for example, like putting a certified pre-owned, you'd have to do it on a few listings to measure its effectiveness.
Yep, but like when we talk about so conceding these ideas seems to be like really unconventional to a lot of people. But when you say certified pre-owned home, if you put your name in front of it, it's your certification, therefore you choose the criteria.
Yeah.
So then you have to make a list that would be worthy of somebody seeing it as being valuable. So maybe that means that you have like an inspection on that
So
property
how
and
I would do it, which is what they did, is get a home inspection done, get them to fix the issues in the home inspection, like the major ones, and then buy a warranty on the home.
mm. So
Now, is it
that's the
true?
set of criteria they used, but
Yeah.
because of that, they're drawing more traffic than others. They're creating a differentiator.
Yeah, more leads, more click throughs, and that's the big one, is it? And like I think he was telling me it was roughly 40% more inquiries off those listings when they put the first image. Now he did it where he actually it was a like a four photos and then the middle was the seal for
Mm.
certified. So we take four images of the home and do it like a little thumbnail
I
at the
definitely
top.
have seen and tested that where I used like the four images. I think that I would argue that the four images would probably get you more of that effect of click in and out.
Yeah. I
But
would I one that'd be interesting to try, and you can this is a really easy one to do on Canva, is one hero image and then like one of those small circular frames that's like the kitchen.
mm,
Right? So it's not the whole image and it's not like split. It's just like a in kind of one of those dead spots of the image that's just like the siding of the house or something that's not like adding value. Drop a frame with a shot of the best part of the interior.
gotcha.
You see those posts on social a lot and they do well. But that's a way you could actually test which thumbnail to put is in your 3 day coming soon period. Run
Rotate.
Facebook ads with $50 that has the different versions you're considering, which one gets the lowest click or highest CTR, and then that becomes the thumbnail when you go on MLS.
I'm putting this on our list for future episodes, which is like A/B testing.
Yeah.
Um, because that's awesome. Uh, okay, so taking a look at that feature image as being super important and playing with different ways to get
Yeah.
attention from it, but definitely not doing the same thing as everyone else, which is
Yeah.
generic front
And
photo, is the key lesson here.
yeah, like really all you want to do too is just look at right before you go list it, and this could be a week before, a couple days before, is look at what the other ones are right now. Right? Like this is a big one we even on like it was a YouTube marketing one where we look at like what I might do and what I'm trying to do could be a different one that works for you. Because if we look at what people are doing in your area, if it looks different, you have to then look different to them. Right. But like the ones that they're doing might not be here. So I might as well just copy what's working for someone else in a different market here if no one else is doing it. But
Hmm.
I have to look at what people are doing and the people I'm directly competing against and how do I stand out next to those.
Totally. Yep. And that should be more of what people look at.
Yeah.
then just try in this direction. There's so many people that are like, yeah, I'm just like gonna try some things. And it's like, no, no, no. Look at the group that you're competing with and then see if you can kind of make some gains against them.
Yeah, it's just looking for those little things that set you apart. Like I was making a joke recently on Google Ads that someone had where like because like inevitably what happens in most markets. So like in the GTA, it'd be like Agent Locator and Commissions Inc. are the two main ones for everyone running Google Ads at a high level. Those are the two biggest ones you see. But they write the ads the same. Right. So like if you search Toronto homes for sale, in a lot of cases there'll be the three or four ad results. Generally, two, three, or all four are essentially worded exactly the same word for word because it's the same companies placing them. And so, like one town we were looking at, and they all said the same, which is like search town homes for sale, updated every 15 minutes. So we just changed ours to updated every 10 minutes.
6 minute abs, right?
Literally the joke I made when I was telling them, like, we're gonna 6 minute apps this.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
The
it's simple, but it like you just have to stand out against the other ones that are there. And most people never even looked at what they were.
yeah, it's not like you need to outrun the bear, you just need to outrun the other hikers.
Yeah, simple.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, now in the other places of like loading a listing, do you see like just the stuff that you do on MLS? Do you see things that people are doing that don't work, or do you see things that you think that are functioning really well?
I mean, besides the obvious, which most people who are going to come on these calls aren't doing, is like don't use your phone to take the photos, like that basic stuff, right? Like RE actually did an interesting study a couple of years back, and it was like, what do people actually care about the most when they're looking for homes? Number one was photos. Number two was listing descriptions. Number three, floor plans.
Hmm.
Why more? And like I would upload the floor plan as one of the images.
Totally.
Because a lot of people, even if they have floor plans, it's under like the multimedia button. It's part of
Yep.
their other thing. Like I would take the image out of the floor plan, include it in, and like the video didn't come into like number 8 on what people actually cared about.
Yeah, I have to say that like video, they're probably pretty interested in the property if they're looking at
Yeah.
the video.
To me, the
I think that
video
you might
is a
even
tool
see
to
a
get
lot
new
of people
clients.
look at the video in order to like after they've gone to the listing. But you're right. It's
Yeah.
more about
Yeah.
be a seller with me.
And because if I'm thinking of selling my home, the first thing I'm going to do is look at the other homes listed near me and how are they marketed. If I was thinking of hiring
Okay.
an agent in my area, one of the first things I'm going to do is look at what are the other because and maybe do any of these stand out as someone I would want to sell my home.
All right. So that's the thing. Like, so we would say pictures are the most important thing
Yeah.
because they're not only going to sell this property, but they're also your resume to your next client.
Yeah.
Like if you take bad photos, your resume looks like hot garbage. There's
Yeah.
no question.
Yeah. You're not doing anything to get more deals out of that.
There's some people that look like their photos look like they're from crime scenes. Like there should be like a chalk outline on the floor
Yeah.
behind them. They're
So
all
here's what I'm
dim
curious
and
how you would handle this, and maybe the rules are different, but here, I know in Ontario, and it's probably similar there, if it's tenanted,
hmm.
you need the tenant's permission to take photos and you can't have their stuff in the photos. So essentially what that leads is most people just put a single photo of the outside, which does, I think, hurt the perception of professionalism if it's essentially just you have a couple outdoor photos, nothing on the interior, because most consumers don't know that.
Hmm.
How would you look at it of how would you do that while still trying to look as professional as possible?
Definitely floor plans as an image.
Yeah.
You can do like you can't take a picture of their stuff. You can totally go in there and floor plan. I think the best looking floor plans are iGuide. I think that the most accessible and price effective are Kubicasa. You can do it with
Okay.
your phone.
Yeah.
But when you that would be like the minimum. It would never just be an outside photo. It would be like an outside photo and floor plans if I couldn't do
Yeah.
interior photos.
Yeah. I would do
But
outside and aerial potentially, floor
maybe aerial.
plans. And then if I could, I'd still get photos of the interior and then Photoshop all the items out.
So now you can't put it on MLS because it's been like it's very likely like not enough of an accurate representation.
So that's
But you
board
could
to
do it
board.
as a package you release to people that are interested. Like there would
Yeah.
be ways that you could do it safely or with less risk where you're distributing it one to one instead of one to all.
Yeah.
Um, Now the where I try to handle this challenge is with my meeting with the landlord.
Yeah.
I talk to them about what we're going to do to be successful and what it's going to cost you because it's definitely not free.
Yeah.
You need to make a deal with your tenants to get them to waive the 24 hours. And I'm talking landlords will give them 50% off the rent if they will allow us to walk a certain number of showings through. So get those people to have incentives and get them to sign the agreements. If you can manage it this way and say, hey, listen, all the people that you're competitive with won't have this conversation. They have one picture of the outside of the house. They have trouble generating traffic. It's like very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Would you be open to spending up front so we can get you a better result and coach them through that? But give those tenants deals. And then as the realtor, you can also get on board. If they're doing the things that you love, a lot of the people that are in those places, like simply showing appreciation with a call and then say, hey, listen, guys, I'm
Yeah.
sending a skip GC your way. You guys had a great week. Those
Yeah.
types of things, it'll get you pretty far.
Yeah, treating them great on that. And like even I didn't do this when I was selling, but I know others who have done it where they'll then also basically act as the tenant's agent on the rental, like their next rental.
Ah,
So they'll
see,
be
look at
like,
these
let me
edges.
help you find that next place. And they'll even try to book those showings during the kind of rush periods for the showings on that property. So it's like they're
See, now
getting that.
this is the way where you can really see that they would get an edge just on their competition that would be enough to win.
Yeah.
So you don't need to outrun the bear, just the other hikers.
Yeah.
And by being able to show the inside of the house, being able to accommodate showings, you're way more likely to get the available buyer.
Yeah. Nice and simple. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
saw another one, which was an interesting one where they actually had the tenant refuse the majority of showings, and it ended up turning into something they wanted to do on future listings where they couldn't get any, like it was listed on a Thursday, and basically tenants refused everything until the Sunday open house. And what it created was a ton of people trying to show up all at one time, and now it looks like the most desirable property in the world.
Yeah, so the effect here is
Yeah.
and know that anytime that you do something well, you're going to piss people off. So just accept it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the idea would be is that there's a bunch of people that are going to be in one place at once, and it's going to make the house
Yeah.
look super desirable, more so than it is because people are going to be afraid of that competition.
Yeah.
And when that's the biggest effect is on opening weekend, and they basically squished it into like
Yeah.
one point to really put the pressure in.
Yeah. There's a lot of clients that we work with now where it's the strategy they use, and it mainly comes from one coach, but it's a 1 hour open house on Sundays of the first week, and their entire goal is to delay every showing and every visit until that 1 hour. And I mean, you can't argue results. Like
Yeah.
it works.
And I'm willing to experiment. Like
Yeah.
when it comes down to these things, the reason that we like to have these conversations is because we both test in our businesses all the time.
Yeah.
And through these tests, we can kind of see things that maybe aren't what these folks are doing. It'll be like the next one. It'll be the next big thing after this, which is
Yeah.
what we're always trying to find.
Yeah. And it's just the little 1% bonus tweaks that you get that pay off.
Okay, so there's certain things that are done on an MLS listing in order to sell the house, and then there's
Yeah.
other things that are done in order to close your next client.
Yeah.
So the way that you can pick up clients off of this, we'll just talk like in the basic before we kind of get into things like listing multiplier. But
Yeah.
obviously, for basic strategy, you can sell the listing. You can attract buyers that are interested by that listing that want to buy it and double end it, or attract buyers that are interested by that listing but want to go buy something else. So that's what the regular marketing does. But now, what about making plays to attract other sellers? So you were saying that video, that's probably the primary goal there. So just make your videos hot, not
And
necessarily
you're in
super
them.
informative.
I
Yeah.
like I would want you in the entire video. Like you are start like, and I would be willing,
Why
like
would you sacrifice video plays like that?
it'll help, man. They're gonna need you at some point. You might as well make it at the beginning. But like, so for like, if I was to do a listing video, my main video of every listing would be between 8 to 15 minutes long,
Mhm.
and it'd be me doing an in-depth walkthrough of the house, selling the house as if I was doing the showing to a buyer.
Mm.
and trying to convince them that this is the house they want. And I know that that's not going to be the thing that sells the house. It's to get other sellers to say, that's the type of person I want selling my house. They see you there, they see
Hmm.
you putting the effort in, they see you. It's the kind of like show your work. It's that whole idea of, when you walk into a bar and the bartender's always wiping it down to make it seem clean. That spot's been cleaned a million times and no one's been there. That's just it makes you feel like you're in a clean place if you always see the bartender cleaning something, right?
Yeah. And
It's,
it's weird if they just stand there and stare at you.
yeah, it's awkward. So, but that's the idea here is you show them the professionals you have. Like, for example, if you put something on social and someone comments ripping the price, that is a gift from the gods because you are now going to respond to that comment and defend the price. You're not deleting it. You're going to defend why it's listed there, and you're never going to change that person's mind. But everyone else that sees it who lives in the area be like, I want someone who can defend my price like that too. I would never delete those comments unless they're like using certain words that are wildly inappropriate to have there. But if it's just like that's wildly overpriced, no one should ever buy that, go in and defend it.
I like it.
Use the comment section to your advantage. I would like, listen, if you are like willing to play the game, go ask someone to comment that so you can do it. Right?
Hmm.
Like there's value there. Like it's one of those little strategies that work really well.
So in the listing video, like right now, short form vertical video is the way to go,
Yeah, which you
right?
cut off your main. So like the main video being the YouTube
Totally.
video, then you're cutting it up.
Right now, my approach to that is that it's short form, it's designed to fit the vibe of things like Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
And then the way that consumers seem to feel about the property is the attraction, and we as realtors are the commercial.
Yeah.
So what we do is we actually look at it like commercials. So in a minute, you're going to see me for about 5 seconds at the beginning where I open the front door and welcome you to the neighborhood, not this address. And the reason is that I found that when you welcome you to the neighborhood, we can actually use this video after the house was sold.
Yeah.
And then they see the flashes of like the features of the house, and then it's another part where the realtor's being informative about the things they can't see.
Yeah.
Central air conditioning. We're not going to do video of the garage in a lot of cases, so we're going to mention that. Maybe something that you can't see in the video, like the fact that you can walk to the park from here. But it'll be like these quick 3 bullets over like a 7 to 10 seconds, and then back to the flashy parts of the video, and then kind of close off.
So if I were you, next listing you get, do this
Mm-hmm.
video. And it's a very quick cut style reel. And it's my three favorite things about our new listing. Bang, kitchen, bang, next part, bang, next part. You want to see the full thing, check it out on YouTube. Like a very fast pace. Here's my top three, top like whatever that number is of like the sexiest parts of that listing. Just let me show you my three favorite things about our new listing. This one, this one, this one. You like if you can keep that even to 30 seconds, great. Because it's that teaser. You're just trying to get them to get enough. And then I would split test that against, link in the bio to see the full thing on YouTube, or DM me 123 main for the full video. Because now you're gonna
Mm,
get them to start talking to you. You want to get those messages. Even if that message is great, here's the link. Are you looking at this for yourself or as an investment property? And
hmm.
get the conversations flowing in the DMs there until you can move it off from there.
Yep. And that's our typical move is comments into DMs,
No,
because that's
no,
where
I
you're
would
going
try
to
to
go
skip
and
the comment section altogether.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just go
So
straight.
you wouldn't even put a comment that says in your DMs and then
So
be in their DMs.
So I would like if they comment, I would go and like message them. But my main call to action in the caption would be DM me like 123 main to get a copy of the full video
Yep,
and the feature
I
sheet
got you. So that way you're driving to the
into the
messages.
DMs. Yeah, I
Yep.
want them in there. Now, some people will still comment on there, but those people you just DM again. But
Hmm.
basically, like every day, you should try to DM 5 different people. Like if you do that, you'll start getting deals off social. Like it's pretty straightforward. If you have enough conversations, it will lead to business on social. You just have to
Agreed.
do that a lot. But it's like if you do that in real life too, you just go up to 5 people, talk to them every day. Eventually, it's going to lead somewhere.
So when you think about like the other things where you attract other seller clients, I
Yeah,
find that the primary like function of things like Matterport or the dollhouse images that
yeah,
those virtual tools create are for attracting other sellers.
yeah. The other actually one that I think more people could do to attract more sellers and referrals from the seller. And what not enough do is create a pack for the current client to post on social. Because
Mm,
if you don't do that, they might go take like the realtor.ca link and post it, which then could potentially drive leads to one of your competitors. Instead, go on Canva, create one that's now, because all of a sudden, if it's on their social, it doesn't matter if your brand's all over it. Create a heavily branded graphic about their house to you, and then give it to them with a suggested caption for them to post on social. And that suggested caption will also have instructions on how to reach out to you.
hmm
Because now that's getting in front of their friends and family too, with instructions on how to contact you. And then these much nicer graphics. So like every client I would have essentially a branded thing that you'd sub their folders in and then just give them like a Google Drive or a Dropbox link with all these assets and say, here's a social post size for that. Here's a story one size for stories. Here's an email if you want to send this out to your list of people. And I just kind of include the instructions like, think of this like, who would you invite to your wedding if you were to have one coming up? Email this to them. And now you're giving them all these pieces to get out in front of people. And
hmm
that's kind of going to be your best advocates right there.
Yep. I've also seen it where like you can turn these into sales tasks as well. So
Yeah.
go and meet the neighbors.
Yep.
I've seen people that deliver cookies to the immediate neighbors.
Neighbors
The
only open house.
neighbors only open house. Go by and door knock.
Yep.
Um, I actually found that door knocking around listings was much more effective for me than even doing open houses.
I could see that.
Yep. Really, like you're meeting those people at their house, and if you find ways to have good conversations with them, like I used a survey. I have done things like brought cookies. Like I tried to
Yeah.
figure it out to the point where in a weekend I would end up getting more database entries from door knocking than I would from my open.
Yeah. And I would even do like the door knocking, invite them to the neighbors only open house.
That's the idea is that
Yeah.
you want those 2 points of contact. So you go
Yeah.
and door knock, then you drive to that open house,
Yeah.
and then hopefully they ask you to come by
Yeah.
and you turn those into walkthroughs.
Easy.
Hmm.
Easy. Now we are coming up on 3. So how much longer do you want to?
I'm good.
You're
The
good?
this was a hard hour,
Yeah.
and I think that we like this is the discussions I was looking forward to.
Yeah. Me too.
And we opened some kind of cans here that we can go into more depth with. Like you and I have talked about going deeper on things like listing multiplier and trying to get more business out of listings.
I think that one maybe we should just invite Dean on.
Yeah. So
Have them talk
totally.
about that, the 9-word email and the super signature.
Whew,
And
that'd
just
be
dive in.
spicy.
That'd be a good episode.
If you want to see more conversations like this every week, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And we're going to have the registration link at the end where you'll be able to jump into the regular meeting occurrence. And you can ask us live questions. We'll even bring you up if it makes sense. But to start, subscribe. We're going to be launching this as a podcast soon as well. So thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day.